Dr. Caldwell stood frozen, gripping the black leather wallet in his hands. His breath hitched as he stared at the small figure in front of him, an 8-year-old girl, thin, with tangled curls and eyes too tired for her age. She had just placed the wallet on his desk without a word, her hands trembling as if she feared the moment would shatter if she moved too quickly. His own heart pounded, but not because of the money inside. It was the face staring back at him from the creased photograph within, the woman he owed his life to. It had started like any other evening for Nia. The city bustled with life as the wealthy passed by in polished shoes, stepping around people like her as if they were part of the pavement. The scent of roasted peanuts from a nearby cart made her stomach clench painfully, but she had long learned to ignore hunger. That night, as she dug through a trash can behind a cafe, hoping for leftovers, her fingers brushed against something smooth and unexpected. At first, she thought it was just another piece of discarded junk, but when she pulled it out, her breath caught. A wallet. Not just any wallet, heavy, thick, and stuffed. She quickly ducked behind the alley wall, heart pounding. Under the flickering streetlight, she turned it over in her hands. The leather was fine, the kind of thing rich people carried, and when she peeked inside, she gasped. Bills upon bills. Hundreds, maybe thousands. More money than she had ever seen in her life. Her fingers shook as she flipped through the cards, credit cards, an ID. Dr. Everett Caldwell. She had no idea who he was, but the name sounded important. For a moment, the world around her blurred. Her stomach growled again, louder this time. With this money, she could eat, maybe even buy a warm coat, or even, no. She clenched her teeth, pushing the thought away. Her mother had taught her better. Her mother. The memories hit her like a storm. Her mother had always believed in doing the right thing, no matter how hard it was. Even when they had nothing, she had been the kind of woman who would share her last piece of bread with a stranger. Nia had lost her over a year ago, and since then, every day had been a battle to survive. But if her mother were here, she would say, "What's right is right, no matter how much you're struggling." Nia knew what she had to do. But it wouldn't be easy. The hospital's automatic glass doors loomed in front of her like a gateway to another world. She hesitated. Places like this weren't for people like her. She had been chased away before, security guards barking at her to leave before she could even step inside. Rich people didn't like being reminded that people like her existed. She took a breath and stepped forward. Almost immediately, a guard in a stiff uniform moved to block her. "Where do you think you're going?" He looked at her with the same expression everyone did, mild annoyance, mixed with pity. "I need to see Dr. Caldwell," she said, gripping the wallet tightly. The guard laughed, shaking his head. "Yeah? And I need a vacation. Get outta here, kid. I have something that belongs to him." She lifted the wallet slightly, but the guard didn't even look. He just rolled his eyes, already reaching for his radio, probably to call someone to throw her out. Before he could, a voice from behind the desk called out. "Wait." A woman in a hospital uniform stood nearby, watching. She had warm brown eyes and a kindness in her expression that Nia wasn't used to seeing. "What did you say?" Nia hesitated, gripping the wallet tighter. "I found Dr. Caldwell's wallet. I need to return it." For the first time, someone actually listened. The woman, her badge read Julia, motioned for her to follow. The guard still looked irritated but stepped aside as Julia led Nia through a maze of hallways, past polished floors and expensive-looking equipment. The air smelled of antiseptic, sterile and cold. Everything about this place felt different. Too clean. Too orderly. It made her feel even smaller. Finally, Julia stopped in front of an office door and knocked. "Dr. Caldwell? There's someone here to see you." A voice answered, muffled. I'm in the middle of something. It can wait. Julia gave Nia a small smile before turning back to the door. I don't think it can. A few seconds passed before the door finally swung open, revealing a man in his late 50s, dressed in a crisp white coat. His hair was graying at the temples, and deep lines creased his forehead, but his blue eyes were sharp. The kind of eyes that missed nothing. He looked at Julia, then at Nia. And then at the wallet in her hands. For a moment, he just stared. Then he took the wallet, opening it carefully, his fingers pausing on the ID. Everything was still inside, untouched. You found this? His voice was calm, unreadable. Nia nodded. And you brought it back? Another nod. Dr. Caldwell studied her for a long time, as if trying to place something. Then, to her surprise, he pulled out a photograph from inside the wallet. It was old and slightly worn, but Nia's breath caught the second she saw it. Because she knew that face. It was her mother. Her knees felt weak. She looked up at Dr. Caldwell, who was staring at the photo with something between shock and deep sadness. His voice was quieter now, almost disbelieving. What's your name? Nia. Silence stretched between them. Finally, he spoke again. I knew your mother. Nia's pulse roared in her ears. He looked down at the photo again before meeting her gaze. She saved my life. Her mind spun, trying to grasp the words. How? When? Before she could ask, his grip on the wallet tightened. And in that moment, she knew, this was not just about a lost wallet anymore. This was about something much bigger. Something that had been waiting for years to be uncovered. Something that would change her life forever. Nia's breath hitched in her throat as Dr. Caldwell's words sank in. Her mother had saved his life? It didn't make sense. She had never mentioned knowing a rich doctor, let alone saving one. And yet, there he stood, staring at the photograph as if he had seen a ghost. His fingers trembled slightly as he traced the edges of the worn picture, his face unreadable, distant. She wanted to ask a million questions, but her voice had vanished. Her legs felt weak, and suddenly, standing in that bright, sterile hospital hallway, she felt even smaller than she usually did. Dr. Caldwell's gaze snapped back to her. His sharp blue eyes studied her with an intensity that made her shift uncomfortably. How long have you been living on the streets? His voice was quiet but firm. Nia hesitated. People always asked questions like that, but they never really wanted to hear the answers. They just wanted to confirm what they already assumed, that she was just another lost kid, another problem they didn't know how to fix. But there was something different in the way he asked. He wasn't just making conversation. He genuinely wanted to know. About a year, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Caldwell exhaled slowly, rubbing his temple. He looked pained. As if something about this didn't sit right with him. He turned to Julia, who was still standing nearby, watching the exchange with quiet curiosity. Cancel my next 2 appointments, he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. Julia blinked. Sir, just do it, he insisted, then looked back at Nia. Come with me. Nia hesitated. Every survival instinct in her body screamed against following a stranger, even one who looked like he had money and power. People like him didn't help people like her. The last time someone had pretended to care, they'd led her straight into a shelter that had been worse than the streets. And yet. She glanced at the photo again. Her mother had known this man. Helped him. And now, fate had brought her right to his doorstep. Wordlessly, she followed him into his office. The room was nothing like she expected. She thought it would be cold and impersonal, like the hospital, but instead, it felt lived in. Books lined the shelves, medical journals stacked neatly on a polished oak desk. A large window overlooked the city, letting in the last streaks of orange sunlight. On one side, a small couch and a table with a coffee machine sat in the corner, making it feel more like a home than an office. Dr. Caldwell walked to his desk and sat down, motioning for Nia to take the chair across from him. She hesitated before slowly lowering herself onto the cushion, her fingers gripping the edges of her seat. He placed the wallet on the desk, then folded his hands in front of him. "Tell me about your mother," he said. Nia blinked, caught off guard. No one had ever asked her that before. They had asked where she came from, why she was homeless, but never about her mother. "She was kind," Nia started, unsure of what to say. "She always found a way to make things better, even when we had nothing." Dr. Caldwell nodded, as if he already knew. "And how did you end up alone?" Nia swallowed hard, her throat tightening. "She got sick. We didn't have money for a doctor. I tried to help, but," she trailed off, looking down at her hands. "One night, she just didn't wake up." Silence filled the room, heavy and suffocating. When she finally looked up, Dr. Caldwell's face had darkened. His jaw was clenched, his hands gripping the arms of his chair. It was the same look people got when they heard her story, the mixture of pity and anger at a world that let things like this happen. He took a slow breath, then leaned back in his chair. "I owe your mother my life." Nia's heart pounded. "How?" He turned his chair slightly, staring at the city through the window. "It was a long time ago. I was working late, exhausted, barely keeping my eyes open. I was supposed to take a car home, but I decided to walk to clear my head." His fingers drummed against the desk. "I didn't see the man following me until it was too late." Nia stiffened. "He attacked me in an alley. Took my wallet, my watch, everything. I tried to fight back, but he had a knife. I don't remember much after that. Just pain. Cold. I thought I was going to die there." He exhaled. "And then, she appeared." Nia's breath caught. "She called for help, put pressure on the wound, wouldn't leave my side even though I begged her to go. If she hadn't done that," he shook his head, "I wouldn't be sitting here today." Nia could hardly believe it. Her mother had never told her. She had never spoken about saving a man's life, never mentioned that she had crossed paths with someone as important as Dr. Caldwell. But at the same time, it sounded exactly like something she would do. Dr. Caldwell turned back to her, his expression unreadable. "When I got out of the hospital, I tried to find her. I wanted to thank her. Help her. But she was gone." His fingers tapped against the wallet. "And now, after all these years, her daughter walks through my door, returning my wallet." His lips pressed together, and for a long time, he just studied her, as if trying to understand something bigger than either of them. Nia shifted in her seat, suddenly uncomfortable. "I should go." He sat up straighter. "Where?" Nia opened her mouth, but no words came out. She didn't have an answer. Dr. Caldwell leaned forward. "You don't have anywhere to go, do you?" Nia clenched her jaw. "I'll be fine." "Will you?" he countered, his tone not unkind, but sharp enough to cut through the bravado she tried to put on. "How many meals have you had today?" She bit the inside of her cheek. "How many days have you slept outside this week?" She turned her head away. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Listen. I can't let you walk out of here without trying to help you. I owe your mother that much." Nia's stomach twisted. The idea of having somewhere warm to sleep, food that didn't come from the trash, it was tempting. But she had learned long ago that kindness from rich people always came with conditions. "I don't need your pity," she said quietly. His eyebrows furrowed. "This isn't about pity." "Then what is it?" He was silent for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "Call it fate," if you want. Your mother saved my life. I never got to repay her. Maybe this is the universe's way of giving me a second chance. She wanted to believe him. She really did. But trust was something she couldn't afford to give away. Dr. Caldwell exhaled, sensing her hesitation. How about this, one meal? No strings attached. You eat, we talk, and if you still want to walk away, I won't stop you. Her stomach growled loudly, betraying her. Dr. Caldwell's lips twitched, the hint of a smile creeping onto his face. I'll take that as a yes. Nia sighed, crossing her arms. One meal. That's it. He nodded, standing up and grabbing his coat. One meal. But deep down, Nia knew that nothing about this was going to be that simple. And as she followed him out of the office, she had a feeling that tonight was going to change everything. Whether she was ready or not. Nia followed Dr. Caldwell through the winding hospital corridors, her steps hesitant, her mind racing. Everything about this felt unreal. Less than an hour ago, she had been another face in the crowd, another homeless kid trying to survive. Now, she was walking beside a man who claimed her mother had saved his life. A man who looked at her like she was some unfinished chapter in a book he thought had already ended. They exited the hospital through a side door, stepping into the crisp evening air. The city hummed with life, horns blaring, neon signs flickering, people hurrying past without a second glance at each other. Nia shivered slightly, though whether it was from the cold or the weight of everything that had just happened, she wasn't sure. Dr. Caldwell's car was sleek and black, the kind that looked like it cost more than everything Nia had ever owned in her life combined. He opened the passenger door for her, but she hesitated. Relax, he said, noticing her hesitation. It's just dinner, not a kidnapping. Nia shot him a wary look before climbing in. The leather seat was smooth beneath her fingertips, and the inside smelled like something clean and expensive. She barely had time to take it all in before he started driving, smoothly navigating through the streets like he had done this 1,000 times before. They pulled up in front of a quiet restaurant, the kind of place where the lights were dim and the tables had little candles flickering in the center. Definitely not the kind of place that let street kids like her inside. Dr. Caldwell didn't wait for her to protest, he just walked inside, leaving her no choice but to follow. The hostess greeted him by name and led them to a booth near the window. Nia slid into the seat, her fingers twitching against the table. She wasn't used to being indoors like this, surrounded by polished floors and the low murmur of conversations. A waiter appeared, setting down menus, but Nia didn't even glance at hers. Dar. Caldwell watched her for a moment, then sighed. You can order whatever you want. She raised an eyebrow. Even the expensive stuff? He smirked slightly. Especially the expensive stuff. She didn't need to be told twice. She had long stopped being picky about food. When you were hungry enough, anything tasted like a feast. But now, given the choice, she went all in. Steak, mashed potatoes, bread, soup, her stomach ached just thinking about it. The waiter barely batted an eye before taking the order and walking away. Dr. Caldwell leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. So, what's your plan? Nia frowned. Plan? He gestured vaguely. For tomorrow. For next week. Next month. She stared at him like he was speaking a different language. I don't make plans, she said simply. I survive. His jaw tightened slightly, but he nodded as if he had expected that answer. You're a smart girl, Nia. And you've clearly been taking care of yourself, but that's not enough, is it? She didn't answer. She didn't have to. He exhaled through his nose. Look, I'm not here to tell you how to live your life. But I want to help. Not out of pity. Not because I feel guilty. Because I can. Nia narrowed her eyes. And what do you get out of it? He paused, considering. A clear conscience. That wasn't the answer she had been expecting. Most adults who offered help always had something they wanted in return. But Dr. Caldwell seemed different. And that scared her more than anything. The food arrived, and Nia didn't wait. She attacked the plate like it might disappear at any moment. She was halfway through her steak when she realized he was watching her, his expression unreadable. "What?" she mumbled through a mouthful of mashed potatoes. He shook his head. "Nothing." But it wasn't nothing. She knew that look. It was the same look people gave stray dogs when they saw them digging through trash, sad, regretful, helpless. She hated that look. After a few minutes of silence, Dr. Caldwell finally spoke again. "Tell me about Zane." Nia froze mid-bite. "What about him? You mentioned him earlier at the hospital. Is he a friend?" She set down her fork. "Yeah. He looks out for me. We look out for each other." Dr. Caldwell nodded slowly, but there was something in his expression that made her defensive. "He's not a bad person," she added quickly. "He's just been on the streets longer than I have." Dr. Caldwell rubbed his chin thoughtfully. "And he thinks you should have kept the money." Nia clenched her jaw. "Yeah. But that's just because," she hesitated. "That's just how things work when you have nothing." He was quiet for a long moment. "Does he have anywhere safe to go?" Nia let out a bitter laugh. "Safe? There's no such thing as safe when you're homeless. Shelters throw you out after a few days. The cops hassle you just for existing. You find a place that's quiet, then someone comes along and ruins it. That's just how it is." Dr. Caldwell's expression darkened. "It shouldn't be." "Well, it is," she muttered. They fell into silence again, the only sound the clinking of silverware against plates. Nia had been around rich people before, but they had always ignored her, pretended she didn't exist. Dr. Caldwell was different. He didn't look away. He saw her. And that was more terrifying than anything else. When they finished eating, he leaned back and folded his hands together. "I meant what I said earlier. I want to help." Nia tensed. "And I meant what I said. I don't need your pity." "It's not pity," he said patiently. "It's a choice. You did the right thing returning my wallet. Now I'm giving you a choice, too." She swallowed, staring at the table. A choice. She had never really had one before. He sighed, sensing her hesitation. "I won't force you into anything, Nia. But at least consider this: what would your mother want for you?" Her breath caught. It wasn't fair. Bringing up her mother. Using her memory against her like that. But she knew the answer before he even said it. Her mother would have wanted her to be safe. Dr. Caldwell stood up, pulling out his wallet, not the one she had returned, but another one. He slid a few bills onto the table. "I'll take you back to where you were staying, if that's what you want. Or I can help you find something better." Nia hesitated. Her mind screamed at her to run, to go back to Zane, to the streets she knew. But her mother's voice was louder, whispering in the back of her mind. A choice. For the first time in a long time, she had one. And she wasn't sure what to do with it. Nia sat stiffly in the passenger seat of Dr. Caldwell's car, staring out the window as the city lights blurred past. Her mind was a storm of conflicting thoughts, each one pulling her in a different direction. The idea of having somewhere safe to sleep, of not having to wake up every morning worrying about where she'd find her next meal, should have felt like a relief. But it didn't. It felt terrifying. She had spent over a year surviving on her own. Surviving was something she understood. But trusting someone? That was a gamble she had lost too many times before. Dr. Caldwell must have sensed her unease because he didn't say much as he drove. He just let the silence settle between them like an unspoken agreement. She wasn't ready to talk, and he wasn't going to push. The car eventually pulled up near the alley where she usually stayed with Zane. The familiar, grimy street felt like another world compared to the sleek, expensive interior of the car. It was dark now, and she could already see figures huddled in the shadows, people blending into the concrete as if they were a part of it. Dr. Caldwell parked but didn't turn off the engine. Instead, he looked at her, his expression unreadable. "Are you sure this is where you want to go?" Nia hesitated. She didn't want to admit it, not to him, not even to herself, but for the first time, she wasn't sure. Her silence must have said enough because he sighed, reaching into his pocket and pulling out a folded piece of paper. "Here," he said, holding it out to her. "It's the address of a shelter I know. It's not perfect, but it's safe. If you ever change your mind, just go there and tell them I sent you." Nia took the paper hesitantly. It was small, crumpled between her fingers, but it felt heavy. It was a way out. A choice. And it scared her more than anything. She nodded, mumbling a quiet, "Thanks," before slipping out of the car. The second her feet touched the pavement, she felt like she had stepped back into reality. The warm air of the car was gone, replaced by the sharp bite of the night. The hum of the engine faded as Dr. Caldwell drove away, leaving her alone again. She wasn't sure how long she stood there before she finally moved. Zane was exactly where she expected him to be, curled up under a broken fire escape, an old hoodie pulled over his face. He stirred when she approached, blinking blearily before pushing himself up. "Where the hell have you been?" he muttered, rubbing his eyes. Nia hesitated before sitting down beside him, her fingers still clutching the paper in her pocket. "Nowhere," she said finally. Zane frowned. "You eat?" She nodded. "Yeah." He studied her for a moment, his eyes sharper than they should have been for someone who had just woken up. "You were with that doctor, weren't you?" Nia tensed. "How did you smell clean," he said flatly. "Like soap. And food." His eyes darkened. What did he want? "Nothing," she said quickly. Too quickly. Zane scoffed. "Rich people don't just help out of the goodness of their hearts." He leaned in slightly. "Did he give you money?" "No." Zane's jaw tightened. "Then what?" Nia swallowed. He said he knew my mom." That made Zane pause. He frowned, tilting his head. "What?" "He said she saved his life a long time ago," Nia continued, her voice quieter now. "And now he wants to help me." Zane was silent for a long moment. Then, he shook his head, muttering under his breath. "Sounds like a load of crap." Nia felt a spark of irritation. Why would he lie? Zane shot her a pointed look. "Because people like him don't see us as people, Nia. They see us as projects. Something they can fix so they feel better about themselves." He leaned back against the wall, his arms crossed. "Let me guess, he offered you a place to stay?" Nia hesitated. "Not exactly. Just, a shelter he trusts." Zane laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "Right. A shelter." He shook his head. "You really think that's gonna change anything? Those places don't care about us. They just want us off the streets so we stop making their city look bad." Nia didn't answer. Because a part of her, the part that had learned to always be skeptical, to never trust too easily, agreed with him. But another part of her, the part that still remembered what hope felt like, wasn't so sure. She pulled the paper out of her pocket, staring at the address written in neat handwriting. A choice. It sat heavy in her hands. Zane eyed it before scoffing. "You're actually thinking about it?" "I don't know," Nia admitted. Zane shook his head. You leave, and that's it, Nia. You think those places let you come and go as you please? They'll suck you in and spit you out the second they get tired of you. You're better off here. Nia frowned. Here? On the streets? It's better than being lied to. Nia felt frustration coil in her stomach. Not everyone is out to screw us over, Zane. He gave her a sad sort of smile. You still think like a normal kid. That stung more than she wanted to admit. They sat in silence after that, the weight of the conversation settling between them. Nia didn't sleep much that night. The next morning, she made a decision. She left before Zane woke up, slipping away into the early morning light. The city was still waking up, the streets mostly empty. She walked fast, her heart pounding as she turned onto a street she had never dared to step foot on before. The shelter was smaller than she expected. It looked ordinary. Not like the horror stories she had heard about overcrowded, run-down places that smelled like sweat and broken dreams. She hesitated in front of the door, fingers tightening into fists. Then, before she could change her mind, she stepped inside. The air was warm, smelling faintly of coffee and something that reminded her of home, not her home, but the idea of home. A woman at the front desk looked up, her face kind but cautious. Can I help you? Nia's throat felt tight. Dr. Caldwell sent me. The woman's expression softened instantly. Ah. You must be Nia. She nodded. The woman smiled gently. Come on in, sweetheart. Let's get you settled. And just like that, Nia stepped into a world she had never let herself imagine. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't just surviving. She was choosing something more. And no matter what happened next, that choice was hers. Nia had never stayed in one place for too long. She was used to moving, used to running. The streets had taught her that nothing lasted, not safety, not warmth, not even the kindness of strangers. And yet, here she was, standing in the middle of a small, cozy room inside the shelter, staring at a bed that wasn't made of cardboard or cold concrete. It felt wrong, almost too good to be true. The woman from the front desk, Maria, had been kind, speaking to her in soft tones as she explained how the shelter worked. She told Nia she could stay as long as she needed. That there were programs to help her. That she didn't have to be afraid. Nia didn't believe her. Not yet. Still, she had stayed. The first night, she barely slept. Every sound made her jump, the creak of the floor, the muffled voices down the hall, the distant sound of traffic outside. It was too quiet, too safe, and that scared her more than anything. By the second day, she met the other kids. Some were younger than her, some older, but all of them had the same hollow look in their eyes, the same guarded expressions. They weren't much different from the ones she had seen on the streets. Some had been here for weeks, others months. They told her the food was decent, the beds warm, but nothing lasted forever. On the third day, she got restless. She knew she should be grateful. She had food, a roof over her head, even people who checked in on her. But her feet itched to move, her body tensed like she was waiting for something bad to happen. Because it always did. So, she left. Not for good. Not yet. She just needed air. The city welcomed her back like an old friend. She walked aimlessly, letting the sounds of traffic and the chatter of strangers settle her nerves. She didn't know where she was going until she found herself standing near the alley where she had left Zane. He was there, just like always, sitting on an overturned milk crate, his hood pulled low over his face. When he saw her, his expression darkened. You actually went, he muttered. Nia shoved her hands into her pockets. Yeah. Zane scoffed. How's it feel being one of them now? She frowned. It's not like that. Oh, really? He gestured around them. You sleep in a real bed now? Got 3 meals a day? People looking out for you? Nia hesitated. Yeah. Then it's exactly like that. She didn't know what to say. Zayn shook his head, looking away. You gonna stay? I don't know. You should. That caught her off guard. Zayn sighed, rubbing a hand over his face. I didn't think you'd actually do it. Thought you'd last a day, maybe 2. But you're still there. Yeah. You should stay. Her stomach twisted. You could come too. Zayn laughed, but there was no humor in it. Nah, why not? I don't do places like that. He kicked at a loose piece of concrete. I'm not like you. Nia clenched her fists. That's not true. Zayn met her eyes, and for the first time, she saw something raw beneath his usual bravado. Yeah, it is. She wanted to argue, to tell him he was wrong. That he didn't have to live like this. But she knew Zayn. Knew that he had been on the streets far longer than she had. That he had made peace with it in a way she never could. So she didn't argue. She just sat beside him, like she always had. They stayed like that for a long time, neither speaking. Eventually, Zayn shifted. The doctor, he check up on you? Nia hesitated, then nodded. Yeah. He came by yesterday. Zayn scoffed. Course he did. He's not like the others, Zayn. They never are. She didn't know how to make him understand. Dr. Caldwell had come. The second day she was at the shelter, he had shown up, sitting across from her at a small table in the common room. He had asked if she was okay, if she needed anything. But he didn't push. Didn't try to make her trust him. He just sat there, waiting, until she was ready to talk. And for some reason, she had. She told him about Zayn, about the streets, about the nights she spent cold and alone. He listened, not with pity, but with something else. Something that made her believe, for the first time, that maybe she wasn't just another broken kid he wanted to fix. She looked at Zayn now, sitting in the alley, his arms wrapped around his knees, and she wished she could make him see what she saw. Come with me, she said again, softer this time. Zayn didn't answer right away. Then, finally, he shook his head. This is home, Nia. She swallowed the lump in her throat. Then I'll come back. Zayn smirked. You better. She didn't know how long she sat with him before she finally stood up. She didn't want to leave. But she also knew she couldn't stay. As she turned to go, Zayn called out, "Hey." She looked back. His smirk faded. Don't let them change you. Nia's chest tightened. They won't. She walked away before he could see the doubt on her face. By the time she got back to the shelter, the sun had started to set. The air was cooler now, the sky painted in soft shades of pink and gold. Maria was waiting for her at the door, arms crossed. You had me worried, sweetheart. Sorry, Nia mumbled. Maria studied her for a moment, then sighed. Come on. Dinner's almost ready. Nia followed her inside, the warmth of the shelter settling around her like a blanket. She still wasn't sure if she belonged here. But maybe, just maybe, she wanted to. And for the first time, that was enough. Nia had never been good at staying in one place. Even with a roof over her head and regular meals, the instinct to run never fully left her. She still woke up before dawn, heart pounding, convinced she needed to move before someone forced her to. She still kept a small stash of food hidden under her bed, just in case. She still flinched whenever someone spoke too loudly, her body tensed for a fight that never came. But the longer she stayed at the shelter, the harder it was to deny that something inside her was changing. It started small. Maria had asked if she wanted to help in the kitchen one afternoon, and against her better judgment, she had said yes. The work was simple, chopping vegetables, stirring soup, but the routine of it, the simple act of making something warm and real, was strangely soothing. The other kids started to talk to her more, sharing their stories in hushed voices over meals, and before she knew it, she found herself listening. Then there was Dr. Caldwell. He didn't push her. He didn't try to fix her. He just showed up. Some days, he brought books, old ones that smelled like paper and dust, their pages filled with worlds far away from the one she knew. Other days, he just sat with her, sipping coffee, as if he was perfectly fine with the silence between them. And then, one evening, he surprised her. "I want to introduce you to someone," he said, setting down his cup. Nia eyed him warily. "Who?" He smiled slightly. "An old friend of your mother's." Her breath caught. "You found someone who knew her?" "I never stopped looking," he admitted. "And when I found you, I knew I had to try again." Nia wasn't sure what to say. For so long, she had convinced herself that her mother was just a memory now, a shadow in the past, too distant to ever reach. But the thought that someone else remembered her, that someone else had known her, sent a jolt through her chest. "Who is it?" she asked, her voice quieter now. "Dar." Caldwell hesitated, then said, "Come with me and find out." Nia didn't ask any more questions. She didn't want to give herself time to second guess. She just grabbed her jacket and followed him out the door. The drive was quiet. The city blurred past, familiar but distant, and before long, they pulled up in front of a small, neatly kept house. It wasn't fancy, but it looked warm. Lived in. There were flowers in the window and a porch swing that creaked slightly in the wind. Dr. Caldwell led her to the door and knocked. A few moments later, it opened. A woman stood in the doorway, her face lined with age but her eyes sharp, curious. And the moment she saw Nia, her breath hitched. "Oh my God," she whispered. "You look just like her." Nia felt something twist in her chest. "You knew my mom?" The woman smiled, but there was something sad in it. "Knew her? Honey, she was my best friend." Nia's heart pounded. She wasn't sure what she had expected, maybe another doctor, someone from the hospital. But this? This was something else entirely. "Come in," the woman said, stepping aside. "I have stories to tell." Nia stepped inside, her pulse racing. The house smelled like cinnamon and old books, the kind of scent that wrapped around you and made you feel safe. She sat at the kitchen table, her hands folded in her lap, as the woman, Carla, she introduced herself, began to talk. She told her about her mother, about the way she used to laugh too loudly and dance in the kitchen when no one was watching. About how she had once dreamed of traveling the world but never got the chance. About how she had a heart too big for the life she had been given. And then she told her about the night she saved Dr. Caldwell. She didn't even think twice, Carla said, shaking her head. She saw him bleeding out in that alley and just moved. That was just who she was. Always looking out for others, even when she had nothing. Nia swallowed hard. She had always known her mother was kind, but hearing it from someone else, from someone who had been there, it was overwhelming. "Why didn't she tell me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Carla sighed. "Maybe she didn't want you to see the world the way she did. Maybe she wanted you to believe in something better." Nia didn't know what to say to that. Dr. Caldwell cleared his throat. "Carla and I have been talking," he said carefully. "And we think, maybe she can help." Nia frowned. "Help with what?" Carla smiled gently. "I have an extra room," she said. "It's nothing fancy, but it's yours if you want it." Nia's stomach twisted. "You want me to live here?" "No, Carla said softly. I want you to have a choice. A choice. That word again. For so long, she had only known one way to live, survive, keep moving, never trust too much. But now, she had options. She had people who wanted to help. People who cared. She thought about Zane, about the way he had looked at her when she told him about the shelter. Don't let them change you. She thought about the streets, about the cold nights, the hunger, the constant fear. And she thought about her mother. She didn't have an answer. Not yet. But for the first time in a long time, she wanted one. She looked at Carla, then at Dr. Caldwell. I need to think about it, she said finally. Carla nodded. Of course, sweetheart. Dr. Caldwell smiled slightly. Take your time. And for the first time in her life, time was something she had.